Six Nations 2024, folks, is only a week away. Who are the favourites? Is there likely to be a Grand Slam? Who's going to pick up the wooden spoon? We'll go through some of the odds for what is kind of predicted to happen in this 2024 edition of the competition. And you guys can let us know your thoughts on how things may or may not be going to go. So we do this every year. We look at the bookmakers' odds and convert them into kind of a percentage. So the bookmakers are only really hazarding a guess as well. So take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But they often get them right. Not always. They tend to not predict South Africa at World Cups, that's for sure. But yeah, we'll go through the odds and you guys can let us know your thoughts, keeping in mind where these odds come from. Bookmakers who ultimately want to take your money. But yeah, we've already had a look at all the squads. If you haven't seen any of the preview videos, there'll be links up in there or down in there. Something we've spoken to some former players like Welsh propping legend Adam Jones had a chat with me about the Welsh squad, and Bernard Jackman, former player himself and hell of a pundit, talked about the Irish squad. Paul Gastard is working over in France with Stade Francais, talked through the French squad, really enlightening stuff for a guy who doesn't watch a heck of a lot of, top 14. And Nick Easter went through the English squad with me as well. So if you haven't seen those, do feel free to check him out. But to the numbers for the 2024 competition. Italy. I'm being generous when I round them up to 1%. Realistically, they should be on basically zero if we're rounding down to kind of whole numbers. But yeah, Italy paying $251 to win the Six Nations. Realistically, will be doing well if they can win a game. They've got a new coach in Gonzalo Quesada. I rate him as a coach. Tactically, I think he took the Jaguares to another level when they were back in Super Rugby all those years ago. They had a chock full of Puma's talented squad, and they were underperforming for a few years in Super Rugby. Went to a final with Quesada, who was that guy pulling the strings at 10? It wasn't Sanchez, it wasn't Miotti. It was the other guy. He wasn't the real fancied guy at Argentinian level, but he was absolutely, his kicking game was on song. So, yeah, we will see if the Italians can pick up a win. They do have France and Ireland away, so not great. And then the game that they may be targeting based on how young the Welsh squad is that Welsh game, but they've also got Wales away. They have beaten Wales away in recent years, but still, tough ask for the Italians. Wales are the second team in terms of being underdogs. This is the position they finished last year, 6th. This is the position they finished last year, 5th. And they are predicted to finish 6th. Wooden spoon, they are predicted to finish 5th. Wales, 4% with Gats in charge. Like I mentioned, they got the Italians at home. That's the must-win game. And then everything else, I think, given how young the Welsh squad is, will be a bonus. But certainly, Gats is a smart guy. And just needs to get this young squad galvanized around the cause. So paying $21, not favored to do a heck of a lot too. And then, interestingly, the side who finished 3rd last year are only the 4th favorite with the bookies, and that is the Scots at 7%. So maybe, given that the Scots tend to struggle with consistency, talented squad, still yet to see, like I mentioned, Quesada able to take that squad to the next level. It's not something maybe we've seen from Gregor Townsend just yet. He's got a really talented squad, but they haven't hit. I mean, he mentioned it in the Netflix doco that they haven't hit their ceiling. It's kind of his job to get them to hit their ceiling. They haven't hit their ceiling as far as I'm concerned with the talent they've got. So paying $12, they've got France and England at home. I think their game against England could be a defining one. I know the game against England is always the biggest game for the Scots of the Six Nations campaign, but yeah, I mean, that race for 3rd, I think could be an interesting one in itself, given that there are two teams who are heavily favoured above all others. But yeah, the Scots feel a little bit underrated with that kind of 7%, $12 rating. The English are at 14%, so double that of the Scots. I mean, I suppose in terms of World Cup success, the English were a whisker away from a final, and the Scots didn't get out of their pool, albeit in very different pools that they had to come out of. So maybe that's part of the reason England are backed. Maybe the fact that England's draw is pretty decent. England, as Nick Easter mentioned in my chat with him, kind of have an increasing level of difficulty with each game. Italy first, Wales second, Scotland third, Ireland then France. And I think the Irish game's at home, so then France away is still, I think, an increasing level of difficulty based on kind of home and away. So, yeah, England's draw should see them build nicely into the competition. It does mean that, you can't afford to throw away any of the early games. You can't afford a banana skin because it only gets more difficult week after week. But England should, in theory, be a contender with all the resources and whatnot they've got. So, yeah, we'll see if Borthwick is able to take his squad to the next level. I was, pretty pleasantly surprised with how well they did at the World Cup, to be honest. A lot of people still don't like Borthwick, but yeah, we'll see. Interestingly, last year's Grand Slam winners are only second favourites this time. Ireland, 35%. Maybe that's because they have to play France away. If they had France at home, which was the case last year, maybe Ireland would be the favourites. But that game in the first round against France could well be a competition deciding game. So Ireland at 35% are the second favourites. They are away also to England. If England have managed to build nicely through their campaign, and if Ireland have dropped that first game away to France, then that's going to be a real pressure cooker one as well. And that makes France favourites. We're at 39%. I mean, I've rounded these numbers to make them nice and clean. There's a couple 0.01 percentage points missing every now and again, but I've been a bit generous with the Italians. They're actually lower than 1%. 39% for the French, paying $2.20. I mean, $2.20 for the French, $2.50 for the Irish. It's bugger all difference. But there's a big difference between these two and everybody else, right? All these guys added together don't make one of these teams, right? It's supposed to be France or Ireland, the Six Nations. And as I mentioned, the fact that France host Ireland in that opening game, I think is what sees them be the favourites. They were without Dupont, so that's going to be a big loss. But yeah, France will certainly be looking to prove a point after, not getting the glory that they would have wanted at last year's World Cup. Is there going to be a Grand Slam? The bookies are saying, in all likelihood, yes, I suppose, because it's a 45% chance of no Grand Slam. But if we put all the other teams' chances together, that's more than no Grand Slam. So France are at 26%, Ireland 21%, England 5%, Scotland 2%, Wales 1%, and Italy have had to round them down to 0 because... yes. So between France and Ireland, we're looking at like a 47% chance of a Grand Slam, plus England's 5% ticks us over 50%. So potentially a Grand Slam on the cards, but the number one favourite is that there is no Grand Slam in the Six Nations 2024. Only a week away, like I mentioned. My sleep schedule is about to go horrendously bad because a lot of the games are on around about 3:15 in the morning here in NZ, but I will mentally prepare myself for that case. What do you guys reckon? Do you think the bookies have got it right? Do you think this is France or Ireland's Six Nations between them? Or do you think a team like Scotland, who are a little bit maybe underrated, England with their World Cup campaign getting to a semi-final, could throw a spanner in the works? Do you see anything coming out of the young Welsh and Italian sides? You guys let us know your thoughts. As I mentioned, check out the other Six Nations previews, especially the ones with the former players. It was great to have some guests on for a change. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts. Talk to you guys again soon. See you later.